Tonight, Justice League gives us the origin of Earth 3's Ultraman, and I gotta tell you, it's actually pretty funny. Aquaman gets a history lesson on why his people are just the absolute worst to ever walk the Earth, and Superman finally wraps up its Psy-War event. I'm sure it'll be a very long time before the next super event. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 112 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and before anything else, I just wanted to get this out there. Next week is a fifth week, meaning that we have a bunch of annuals and stuff. And looking historically at past episodes, fifth weeks, not to a great extent, but to a certain extent, are skipped over because, well, it's kind of just filler content. Wanted to make you aware, this is not filler content. There is like 3 different events that are all either starting or ending next week. So be sure to tune in on that because it is gonna be a doozy. Anyway, comics for this week. It is still recovery period. We are still kind of getting into the flow of things after Villains Month last month. Gotta admit, there were like 3 comics this week that I had to go back and read the last issue for because it was just not in my head at all. Looking at you, Teen Titans. I swear to God, there has never been a book that had a weaker link between issues than between Teen Titans 23 and 24. It may as well have just been a brand new number 1 at that point. It's awful. Anyway, how about I tell you all the books that are coming out this week rather than just focusing on the negative one? So this week we have, in no particular order, Batman the Dark Knight, Catwoman, Talon, Superman, Larfleeze, Red Lanterns, Aquaman, Flash, Justice League, All-Star Western, The Green Team, Teen Trillionaires, Teen Titans, and Justice League Dark. Noteworthy of that is actually a decent amount. Superman is the end of Psy-War. Thank Christ. Red Lanterns is the second to last part of the Lights Out event. And Justice League is a tie-in, quote-unquote, to Forever Evil. It has the banner on it, but, like, it's not really doing anything. I mean, it's taking place during Forever Evil. If that makes it a tie-in, then yes, it's a tie-in. Also, Justice League Dark is the first part, as far as I'm aware, of Forever Evil Blight, which, much like Arkham War and Rogue's Rebellion, is a side story off of Forever Evil, but it doesn't get its own title. It is instead spread along Justice League Dark, Trinity of Sin Pandora, Phantom Stranger, and Constantine. So if you're interested in the Dark series of books of the more magical side, that's a big event, so be sure to listen in on that. Anyway, whole lot of stuff going on. I know for a fact that I talked too long about like 3 or 4 comics, so let's not waste any more time and jump right on into the big events of this week. Justice League number 24, written by Geoff Johns, art by Ivan Reis. This is technically a tie-in to Forever Evil, but it's more so of just, hey, with the Justice League dead, how do we do a Justice League book? And the answer is the Crime Syndicate. So we pick up 25 years ago, and we show Krypton exploding in Earth 3 universe. So we see there's a bunch of people who are all making their way to escape pods. They're trampling over each other. They're all being jackasses. And then all of a sudden there's a massive explosion. And we see this world's version of Jor-El, who is called Jor-Il. And he just starts blasting people. He's like, screw you all. No one gets to leave Krypton. That's the only way my son's going to make it off this planet. So they make their way over to a rocket, and they put baby Kal-El inside, and they're like, our son, we are saving him for the sole purpose that he will get revenge on the being that destroyed our planet. It's not about his safety. We're doing this out of spite. And they put him in, and he's like, oh, God, he's so weak and pathetic. It's disgusting. Anyway, send him off. And they final words is, be the strongest there is or be nothing at all. And I do love, there's Jor-El and then there's Lara, his wife, and the final little discussion between them is, "This is all your fault, Jor-El." And then he responds with, "Shut up and die, Laura." So the rocket makes its way into space, heading towards Earth, same as always. They explain that the kryptonite that's coming off of the planet and like coming with him is his power source. It is what is actually going to make him strong, and that he needs to avoid sunlight because that weakens him. And he's like, "All right, yep, go out there, find whatever you need, just rule over the planet and be strong." So we land at the Kent farm, which is currently an abusive household. John Kent and Martha are like holding knives to each other's throat, and they're fighting with each other. And then all of a sudden, roof crashes in, rocket ship lands. They go outside to see what it is, and they see little baby Cal munching on some kryptonite. And as they approach him, he heat visions off John's hand, and he's like, "You two, you will be my parents now." And they're like, "Oh, geez, okay." Apparently, they were parents for like 7 years, and then they outgrew their usefulness, so Cal buried them in the cornfield and burned down the whole Kent farm. So then we see, they attacked the president, took over the world. We see how Power Ring got his power ring. We see Superwoman is seducing him. So all that happened, and then all of a sudden, there's a boom. Boom tube goes off, and their planet is suddenly destroyed by someone. We don't get to see who. And so they say, "All right, well, let's go to a new Earth." They go to the current Earth, Earth Zero, and they say, "Well, it's kind of the same. Geography's all flipped. But whereas the animal world seems to be functioning the same way of might makes right, the strong will survive, humans have this stupid thing called compassion, and that doesn't make any goddamn sense to me." So at this point, we see that Ultraman is talking to Grid, the cybernetic half of Cyborg, and he's asking him, "Okay, find me more kryptonite. I need more kryptonite." And Grid can't find any more, so they're relying on Deathstorm, which is Firestorm's alternate, to have a plan to make more kryptonite. But he's off doing something with the rogues over in a side story. We see Johnny Quick and Atomica are just running around the planet killing people like nobody's business. And Grid's just keeping an eye on everything. And Ultraman's like, "You're a good soldier. You're solid. You are a sentient computer virus, and therefore I don't give a damn about what you have to say, but keep doing what you're doing." So at that point, Grid advises him that something's going on in Kondak. He needs to take care of it. But first, Ultraman says, "Hold on. I need to go check on the Daily Planet. There's something I got to see." And we see at the Daily Planet, everyone is hightailing it out of there. Everyone's freaking out. Steve Lombard is telling Jimmy, like, "Dude, we got to go. Superman's dead. He ain't coming to save you." And Jimmy gets pissed off about that. He's like, no, he's gonna be fine. He's fine. Jimmy goes over to Lois, who's still trying to write a story, but they got to go. There's nothing else they can do here. And then all of a sudden, Ultraman crashes in through the roof. And Jimmy's like, "Superman, I knew you'd come. Wait a minute. You're not Superman, are you?" And so Ultraman just lumbers up to Jimmy and says, "You, Jimmy, what do you do here?" And he's like, "I take photographs." And he snaps a picture of Ultraman. And he's like, "What kind of photographs? You take pictures of Lois, right? Revealing pictures? Dirty pictures?" And he's like, "What? No, Jesus, why would I do that?" And he starts like grabbing Jimmy. He breaks his hand while he smashes the camera in it. Lois comes up and starts trying to fight against Ultraman. He just tosses her aside, no problems at all. Apparently the Jimmy in his universe is like the most toughest, worst guy there is. And he's saying like, "Where's the guy who skinned Steve Lombard for sneaking a peek at his private photos?" So at that point, the rest of the Daily Planet crew like tries to rush to help Lois. He just super breaths him out of there. And it looks like he's about to crush Jimmy's skull under his foot. And he's like, "Oh, I can hear your watch going off. I know you're calling for Superman. It ain't gonna work. He's dead. He's not coming to save you." And at this point, as he's about to crush Jimmy's skull, Lois comes in, smashes her typewriter on the back of Ultraman. And he's like, "Lois Lane in my universe is Superwoman, and I can't kill her because we got a whole thing going on. But I can kill you, and I'm going to enjoy it." And then all of a sudden, Grid pops over the comms and just like, hey, you remember I told you there was something going on in Kondak? And he's like, yeah, I'll get to it, Grid. And he's like, yeah, you don't have to. It's getting to you. And then all of a sudden, Black Adam bursts in through the window, grabs Ultraman, and just pelts him across Metropolis. And he basically monologues saying like, yeah, I saw your message. I saw you said this world is ours. I got a thing against tyrants of people being enslaved. That's kind of the whole thing that my character's been doing recently. So I'm going to rip you apart. And as he tries to do so, we see Ultraman's like, hey, you're tough. I was thinking there wasn't anybody here who was willing to do what was necessary. Glad that I can have something to fight against. And he just uppercuts Black Adam and throws him across saying, I don't break so easy. And that's the issue. It's good. I like it. I think it's a solid look. If this entire little pace of Justice League during the events of Forever Evil is going to be more focused on what the crime syndicate is doing, I think I'm good with that. I feel like the Forever Evil like core book is going to be more focused on, okay, here's how Batman and whoever else survived, how they're solving things, whereas this could easily be focused on the crime syndicate and just seeing their inner dynamics and how things are working there. I'm good with that. That sounds like it's an interesting story. It might not turn out that way, especially based off of some covers I see coming up, but as it stands now, I'm liking the Ultraman story here. So I'm going to say this is a solid 8. I think it does a great job of doing the origin story. It's funny. Like it's written hilariously of like how awful they are to each other. But yeah, it's just a solid 8. It's good writing all around. I'm looking forward to the rest of it, however that's going to turn out. So yeah. Red Lanterns number 24, written by Charles Soule, art by Alessandro Vitti. This is the second to last part of Lights Out event going on. And the last time in Red Lanterns, we saw that basically Guy was calling Hal asking for an extract, and the events of Lights Out, he was like, sorry, no can do. Everything's kind of crazy right now. And then in Lights Out, the last part we saw was Hal and them were teleported over to Yzmalt because they need to talk to Guy because they might actually have some power left in the Red Lantern batteries. Whole lot of other stuff. Anyway, we pick up with Bleeze overhearing Guy Gardner's plea for an extract, and she's just like, well, isn't this a sticky predicament you're in? I think I'm going to go tell the rest of the Corps. And he's like, well, how about before you do that, I tell you what exactly you heard and saw. What you heard is that the Green Lantern Corps is leaving me to die and they betrayed me. What you saw is I killed Atrocitus. So maybe you don't want to mess with me right now. And she's like, what? I'm not scared of you. Why would I be scared of you? And she's like, yeah, sure. Go ahead then. Tell them what's up. Or maybe I'll tell them that you're the spy. You worked with the Green Lanterns, apparently, back in the day. Why wouldn't they think that you're a spy? So at that point, she's like, what? No, I don't. And he's like, you know what? How about, there's a bar on this ship. Let's get everybody together. So they meet up in the canteen. Everyone's got some drinks. And everyone's like, what's up? Why are we gathering? What's going on? And Guy's like, well, Bleeze has something she wants to share. And Bleeze is like, no, I don't. And Guy's like, yeah, that's what I thought. What she was going to share is that I was sent here as a spy for the Green Lanterns. And everyone's like, dude, what? Seriously? And he's like, yeah, no, totally. However, screw them. They suck. They abandoned me. I am not with them anymore. I am a Red Lantern through and through. And don't forget, I killed Atrocitus. And what we're going to do, like, Green Lanterns, they don't give a crap about me. We're Red Lanterns only. And then at that moment, Hal Jordan arrives saying, hey, Guy, I showed up here with the entire Green Lantern Corps. We're here to help. And Guy's like, God damn you, Hal. So the other story that was going on was that Atrocitus absorbed the entity of the Red Lanterns, the Butcher, and he's going back to get revenge on Guy. So he's just making his way through space with Dexter. And then all of a sudden, the Butcher just explodes out of his chest. And Atrocitus is like, Dexter, please help. Don't let him escape. I need him in order to live. So back on the planet, we see the Red Lanterns start attacking the Green Lanterns. Hal says, hey, whoa, everybody, defensive only. We're not launching any attacks. We're here to help, guy. And so we see Scalox is going after Hal, and Hal calls out for help. And Guy comes up and says, Scalox, back off. And Guy's like, oh, thank you so much. Bam, punches him in the face. And Hal's like, yeah, all right, should have seen that one coming. That's pretty much standard Guy. And they start arguing in the sky, saying like, oh, you abandoned me. I'm not a Green Lantern anymore. And Hal's like, look, if we were ever friends, just understand, I just need to explain what's going on. And Guy's like, all right, fine, make it quick. So he explains the whole relic thing, everything else going on, and how he's ruining everything. And Guy's like, okay, my light's fine. This guy's not doing anything to me. And Hal explains that's the reason we're here, is because your core has some weird blood magic thing that gives you extra powers outside of the standard emotional connection. You're the only ones that might be able to actually beat Relic. So we need your help here. And he's like, okay, or we don't help you, the Green Lanterns go extinct and the Red Lanterns live. That seems better. And he's like, no, you don't understand. The entire universe is going to be gone. Dude, this guy is destroying everything. And he's like, all right, fine. But you got to give me something. And he's like, okay, I'll give you whatever. And he's like, all right, cool. So back at the Atrocitus thing. By the way, for the very brief second he had it in him, he called himself the Atrocity Butcher. I guess that's done now because the Butcher manages to completely remove itself from Atrocitus' body. Dextar's clinging onto its chains. It's like, no, please, go back into Master. He needs you in order to live. Because Atrocitus is now just floating in deep space without anything to protect him. And then Kyle Rayner shows up, and he's like, hey, Butcher, I've got all the other entities in me. Why don't you come inside of me? And we see Dextar's trying to hold back the Butcher from going into Kyle. Atrocitus is pleading for his help. It's a heartfelt scene. And eventually Dextar says, no, I got to go save my master. So he goes and protects Atrocitus. Kyle comes up after absorbing the Butcher. He's like, hey, sorry. I kind of needed to do this in order to save the universe. And Atrocitus is like, I'm not going to forgive you. You suck. And he's like, all right, well, bye. And he just flies off. And they swear vengeance against Kyle Rayner. Meanwhile, what is Relic doing? Well, Relic's at the Source Wall, and he's using all of the technology he has to try to break through it because he knows that on the other side of it is the emotional reservoir, and I guess he wants to get to it. And as he's unable to break through, he gets angry, smashes his machine, and he's like, okay, all right, well, I didn't want to resort to this, but I can use the emotional energy that I harvested already. Because it's already spent, I may as well just use it, and I'm going to bust through the Source Wall that way. Kyle and the other Guardians show up and come up to Relic, and they're like, Relic, you got to stop this. And he's like, okay, I can sense you're more powerful. I can see that, but you still are no match for me. I'm going to be doing this, so you want to fight, let's bring it. And he's like, no, Relic, you misunderstand. We agree with you. We want to help you. The Source Wall has to come down. So that's that. And then final page here, we have the Red Lanterns are convening. Guy's explaining the deal he made. He's like, look, we're going to have a vote. It's not me who's doing this. We all have to agree. But if we help the Green Lanterns, they are going to give us a sector all to ourselves. They aren't allowed to step in. We get to be the law there. Everyone up for that, and everyone's kind of like, I don't know, you just admitted you were working for the Greens, now you want to make a deal for them. They're a bit skeptic, but everyone does eventually see the payout is way too great, so they all agree. Red Lanterns are in. It's time to go kick Relic's ass. And that all concludes in an annual of Green Lantern that I believe is next week. So, yeah, I like it. It's kind of strange in that it doesn't really feel like it's the standard progression for normal like events where it's, oh no, everyone's at their lowest and then we suddenly get that second win. Like the same thing we did with like Rise of the Third Army and all that. But I'm not saying that as a negative. I actually really like that. The fact that the Red Lanterns have kind of just been chilling on their own, doing their own thing, and they have this special little extra thing that's going to push the battle into their favor. And then add on to that, Kyle is basically siding with the villain at this point, saying, yeah, no, you're right. There is something that needs to change here. So it's a different kind of event. I think it all is really going to hinge on how it wraps up, what it decides to keep and what it decides to throw out. I genuinely have no idea how it is going to go. I don't have any real feeling towards that. My best bet is that obviously the Red Lanterns do get their own sector regardless, mainly because I know this book continues onwards. And then maybe a core like has to like peel back. Maybe they got to like lower down how much they're using their power. I don't know. We'll see next issue. Overall, this is probably a good... I'd give it a 7.5. I think it is... I was debating between the 7 and the 7.5, but I do think it is actually strong enough to stand on its own. It's a nice little solid issue. The only thing that's a little bit for me is the fact that Atrocitus got the Butcher last issue and then it just immediately busts out of him. It feels to me more like Charles Soule didn't want to do that, but then in the end was like, no, you got to tie into this event. You got to do this. So that's the only little thing that's hanging me up. But beyond that, great issue. Superman number 24, written by Mike Johnson, art by Eddy Barrows. This is the conclusion to the pulse-pounding event of Psy-War. So what happened last issue? Superman got drained by Psycho Pirate, and then Lois Lane, with her own psychic powers, showed up and challenged him to a fight. And that's exactly where we pick up here. This is all narrated through Lois, basically explaining everything that happened as she's fighting against Psycho Pirate. And he's like, okay, yeah, you got some power to you, but you're also brand new to your powers, and even if you can manage to figure out, like, the basics, like, she fires off, as Psycho Pirate calls it, a brain bolt, and he's like, that's neat, good job, that's very advanced, but I can just catch that and turn it around back on you. So immediately, he's got the upper hand all over Lois, and he says, like, yes, I'm going to go out now, and I'm going to liberate Metropolis from its societal constructs. We're all going back to animal impulses. However people want to feel, that's how they're going to feel. Peace. And he flies off. So Lois then goes over to Superman. She realizes, like, oh, he's not completely gone. There's an ember left in his mind. I can feel it. And so she gives a little bit of a charge to him. And he wakes up and just be like, oh, Lois, hey, what's going on? And she's like, yeah, okay, he's off taking out the city. We got to do something. And he's like, but how? Psycho Pirate's so strong. And then all of a sudden, Hector Hammond shows up out of the rubble of the building and says, hey, I'm still alive and I still have some powers. And Superman's ready to fight, but he's like, no. Psycho Pirate sucks. I suggest a truce. Me and you, we will fight against him and stop the city from going crazy. Also, Lois Lane's got some power. We might need to use her as well. And then, also in the rubble, despite being blown up into a million bits, comes the Hive Queen. Except she doesn't look like a blonde woman anymore. She looks like a grotesque alien monster thing with huge fangs and jaws. And it turns out this is actually her true form. She just uses her psychic whatevers to make everyone think that she looks like a blonde woman. So at that point, they agree, yeah, okay, I guess I'm in on the truce. We'll go ahead and do whatever just because we need to protect Metropolis, if only so that we can rule it later on. So everyone's out fighting on the street. Everyone's going crazy. Psycho Pirate's monologuing, saying, yeah, I freed them all from the mental prisons. I am savior of the city. And then Superman shows up, tackles him. The Psycho Pirate's like, dude, again, I have mental powers. You can't just punch me out. This is like the easiest thing. And so he says, but if you're intent on fighting someone, I will sick the whole city against you. And he starts commanding the city to attack Superman, but they don't move. And it turns out that Lois is using basically all of her power to blockade Psycho Pirate's commands. They're all just standing still so they can't hurt each other anymore. So Psycho Pirate launches an attack on Superman. It looks like he deflects it with his hand, and he's like, wait a minute, you don't got psychic powers. What are you doing? And then we get the reveal of Hector Hammond. He's hanging around, doing whatever. It essentially just boils down to a big psychic fight, and Hector's like, oh my, he's so strong. I don't know if we can take him. And This is the only point out of this entire event where Psycho Pirate's like, yeah, I'm so strong. I'm also over in the Superboy book right now, using a psychic projection to do things to him. Go read Superboy. So at that point, they make the conclusion that they need to pull off Psycho Pirate's mask. It's the thing that's causing all this. So Superman, while he's distracted, comes in, rips the Medusa mask off him, and stares into it. And he sees like his parents calling out to him, and he's like, oh, put me on, and all this can be yours. And he goes to put on the mask, and then Lois calls out saying, no, don't listen to it. Clark, you need to listen to me. So Superman rips off the mask, it shatters in his hand, and then for some reason Lois just is about to die. She's expended too much psychic energy. So Superman comes over and comforts her and just being like, oh, I'm so weak, my power's fading. Also, hey, you're Clark. Am I like the worst investigative reporter ever? And he's like, no, I did a really good job of hiding it. That's not on you. And she's like, cool. Anyway, bye. And she's like, no, you've always been my best friend. And it seems that Lois dies. But she doesn't, because on the next page it says she just slipped back into her coma, her psychic powers are gone, and John Carroll is there saying, hey, thanks for bringing my girlfriend in. Where did she come from? And he's like, I don't know, she was just stumbling out in the street when everybody went crazy. Beats me. Anyway, I'm going to leave now. So he flies off saying, like, oh yeah, I can't believe it. That's now not only Psycho Pirate knows my secret identity, but so does Lois. And we'll see if she remembers that when she comes to, but I don't know. We'll see what happens next. And then immediately he is yanked out of the atmosphere by this incredible force that he's unable to fight against. And we see continues in Superman Krypton Returns, because we can't go one goddamn issue without being part of a crossover event. So yeah, Krypton Returns. It's just one issue across all the super books, and it's just wrapping up storylines that were started, quote unquote, in Hell on Earth. So great on that. Honestly, I've been saying it this whole time. Psywar is such a stupid excuse for an event. I honestly, because like he even mentioned the fact of like, oh, but Brainiac still might be on the way, and it's like, why wasn't that? This isn't an event. This is nothing. This is just a storyline that you didn't want to keep in one book. And I don't understand that. I mean, it's like a 5.5, 5.5. It's not good by any means, but like, I'm more pissed off with the fact that they decided to call it like a crossover event than I am pissed off with the event itself. It's a perfectly fine storyline. It's fine to have, oh, there's a bunch of psychic people who are going to take over Metropolis. Fine, good, do that. But don't give it its own thing, man. So yeah, it's a lot of build up for not a lot of payoff, but I will still give it like a 5.5. It's just poor in general, and I don't suggest it. Justice League Dark number 24, written by J.M. DeMatteis, art by Mikel, Janín. So last issue was just kind of tie-in stuff, Trinity of Evil, all that stuff. So this issue picks up after the beginning of Forever Evil, and we see Constantine is passed out, he's not good, and then all of a sudden he jolts awake, and he has no idea where he is, no idea what's going on, but he is in the, as we find out later, House of Mystery, and he's being climbed on by a bunch of tiny little John Constantines that all look like basically gremlins of different forms, and he starts throwing them all off. He's like, Jesus Christ, get out of here, what's going on? And so he throws them all away, and as he comes to, he realizes like, oh my god, I'm freaking out right now. I think I'm actually having a panic attack, but I'm Constantine, that shouldn't happen to me. So he sits down, he calms down, and he's like, all right, so those little things were probably just like psychic projections, something that like came from me. That's fine, that's fair. I'm in the House of Mystery. Okay, everything's cool, but what in the hell happened? And as he thinks back, he's like, okay, yeah, we opened up the box. Evil crime syndicate came through. They just immediately wiped the floor with like all 3 Justice Leagues that were there, and there was something of a green light. That's all I remember. So he takes a bath, he relaxes, and he's like, how did I get out? That's the only thing I don't get. Nobody else seems to be here. How did I get out? And he feels this presence all around him, and he's like, wait a minute, hold on. House. The House of Mystery. It saved me. It has its own, like, consciousness, and it's a thing that feels and, like, wants things. It must have pulled me out of that situation. Okay, what's up? And as he roams through the halls, he comes across a greenhouse, and he's like, just looking around, he's like, I didn't even know we had a greenhouse. But as he's in there, he says, okay, all I can think about right now is getting Zatanna back, because he is just all in love with Zatanna at this moment. And so he starts casting runes and stuff like that, casting spells, trying to figure out where Zatanna, and by extension the rest of the Justice League Dark are. But there's nothing. No trace of them at all. And he's like, they're gone. I don't think she's dead, but they're gone. And I don't know what that means. And he starts freaking out a little bit until finally the house says, we're about to go on a moral story here, so hang tight. So it forces this image around him of being stuck in this room with an unhappily married couple. He's like, these people aren't important. I don't know them. What's going on? But as he watches them, he sees this little cloud of smoke coming out of their head as they like argue with each other. And then all of a sudden he's on a city street and he sees this homeless person that's being just passed by as they ask for change and whatnot, being ignored. And there's this little cloud above their head as well. And the house keeps on showing them all these different people who are inherently not bad people. They're not doing awful things, but they're being put in these bad situations, like a kid being bullied or just people sitting alone at a bar, someone being beat up. And they have these little clouds over top their head. And he's like, wait a minute, okay. What they were saying in the book before was that Pandora's box unleashed evil on the world. It was a portal to Earth 3, therefore evil came from Earth 3. Earth 1 or Earth 0 did not originate it. However, what he's seeing here, all these little dark entities hovering above people, it is evil. It is how evil comes to be. It's when people are put into situations that make them sad or upset or angry or whatever. That's what births sin, is people not being happy, basically. It's the injustice of the world that births evil. And we see that all of these smoke things come together and they form this giant creature. He sees it as a black serpent, and he says it is a blight on humanity. And that is what the real like birthplace of evil is. It's all of humanity's individual sins coming out and projecting on itself. So at this point the house is like, okay, I get it, house. So what's up? What am I supposed to do here? And the house shows them a reflection of the Justice League Dark, and they're all saying like, oh, you abandoned us, John. You let us die. And he's like, shut up. I didn't do that. And he smashes the mirrors. And then the Justice League Dark are just left standing there. He's just like, hey, no, we're still here. And he's like, what do you want? None of you are real. He's like, yeah, we're not real. We're just projections of your own guilt and stuff like that. So what's up? What do you want? And he manages to shake all the rest of them away, except for Zatanna. Goes on a walk with her and basically says, like, the Syndicate won, Zatanna. It's over. I can't do anything, and I'm not about to go out there and play hero again. And he's just like, I'm not here to make you be a hero. I'm here to do something to you, to cure you. And he's like, what do you mean? And she reaches inside of Constantine and seemingly pulls out his own black smoke and like removes it from him. And Constantine wakes up and he's in bed with Zatanna, and he's just like, this feels good. You know what? Even if this isn't real, I'm liking what this is. Maybe we could just chill here for a while. You've always been my light, Zatanna. And she basically says like, oh yeah, you know, there'll be plenty of time to go out and make the world better later. Let's just stay here for now. They share a kiss, and then immediately Constantine just punches her in the face with a magic spell and just says, you deceitful bitch. And as we see, it wasn't the house that was doing all of this. Some of it was, but for the Zatanna stuff, turns out that was actually Nightmare Nurse, who I can't remember if she was in Justice League Dark, but she was definitely in Phantom Stranger. And it's just like, hey, me and you used to be close like that. What's the big deal? And he's like, I never want to think back to that time. You are absolutely too freaky for me. She's like, fair enough. Regardless, let's go ahead and pick up where we want. And she sticks him to the wall with some magic scalpels and basically says, all right, here's the deal. I cured you. I saved you because the thing that I ripped out of you was the Pandora virus, which, as it turns out, was when you open up Pandora's box, that thing that makes you turn like evil and bad. It's a thing. It's a thing that latches onto like your soul, and it makes you see only the worst things in the world. That's where he was seeing all of that sin stuff, was because of the Pandora virus. So she rid him of that and said, I did that because, one, it puts you in my debt. You owe me one. And two, it's just kind of my nature. I'm a nurse after all. I got to heal people. And she's like, what, seriously, you want to help me? And it's like, yep, we're gonna try to help the world. That's the goal right now. And I brought some reinforcements. And we see, as they step back into the greenhouse area, there is a Swamp Thing. And Constantine's like, that's not Alec Swamp Thing. And she's like, no. He seems to be gone. I made my own Swamp Thing. So we've got a new Swamp Thing that is maybe evil. I don't know. This is, if I didn't say it at the beginning, this is part 1, quote unquote, of a very large tie into Forever Evil called Forever Evil Blight. And it's basically all the Dark books. It's Constantine, Pandora, Trinity of, what's it called? Phantom Stranger, and of course Justice League Dark. They'll all be tying in to deal with whatever this big snake monster thing is, and the original birth of evil named Blight. So yeah, I like it. I think it's a fine issue. I think this one's a bit too slow paced and like faux philosophical for me. Like, I like how it's trying to square the circle of, okay, if evil didn't exist before Pandora's box, like, that doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. That doesn't jive with what things we've seen in the universe. So I like how this one is basically trying to take the back door of like, no. More evil came through because of Pandora's box, but there was still evil in our universe, and we're just going to be exploring that. So I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm not opposed to it. Art-wise, looks great. Mikel Janín's fantastic, as always. It just seems a little bit too much stuffed in the end and then too padded out in the middle. So that's my only real complaint. I'm going to say this is probably a 6.5 for me, just because we're still in the early phases. I want to see how it shakes out, but I am excited. So we'll see where it goes, wherever the hell the next part of this is. Batman the Dark Knight number 24, written by Gregg, Hurwitz, art by Alex Maleev. So, do you want a Clayface origin? Because you're going to get a Clayface origin. So after the last issue where they captured Clayface, put him into Arkham, gave him a special containment cell, we see him just chilling there. And someone in the cell next to him, I don't think we ever get a name for him, is basically a huge fan of Basil Karlo from his acting days. He's like, dude, you were great. Oh, do that monologue. You were so fantastic in the role. And he starts doing the monologue. He says the whole thing. And immediately the guy's enraptured. He's like, oh, yes, bravo, encore, please, more. And Clayface is like, oh, man, I really like people clapping for me. This is good. I like being able to act for them. So he stands up and he does it again, and he gets more into it. And we see weeks pass on. A couple of guards are getting Scarecrow out of his cell, and he has along this little mirror of terror. I don't know. Regardless, as they're walking Scarecrow past Clayface's cell, he's performing, and they're making fun of him, saying like, he's just regular Shakespeare over here. But Clayface looks into Scarecrow's mirror and sees something that just immediately shuts him up. And the guy asks, like, what was it? What did you see? And he's like, oh, I saw me when I was young, when I was ordinary. And we get flashback to him as a kid, and we see him basically just being ignored all throughout his childhood, all of his classmates and all that. It wasn't that he was bullied. It wasn't that he was like picked on. He just never made an impression on anyone at all. And he keeps on saying like, oh, maybe it's like the clothes I wear or something like that, something to make me stand out. So he asks his parents, please, can I like get some clothes for a new outfit, something that's going to make me stand out. And his parents can't afford it. But his mom eventually comes in and says, okay, here's a little bit of cash, like just make it last. So he goes down to the thrift shop, picks up a leather jacket and steals some sunglasses, and goes into school the next day. He's like, all right, here it is, the new Basil Carlo. And he walks in. Still nobody cares. Nobody gives him the time of day. And he's so upset by this, he returns the glasses with a sorry note. And his parents are like, look, just be yourself. That's the most important thing. And Basil's like, it's not enough. So he goes to auditions because earlier on some kids were saying, actors get all the babes. And he goes up and he does his audition. And the people are just like, all right, that's enough, thank you. And he's like, I'm sorry, I can do it better. He's just like, yeah, no, it's just, there's nothing special about you. And he keeps on doing auditions. He keeps on doing that in his adult life. And consistently and constantly, he is told, you don't have that leading man factor and you're not like weird enough to be a character actor. So you just have nothing for you. You just don't have it. And so he hears that there is someone who can help him down in the depths of Gotham, and he makes his way down to a warehouse. And we reference back to Gregg Hurwitz writing Penguin, Pain, and Prejudice, where Clayface opens up a door and the Joker is there being spanked by a sumo wrestler. Doesn't explain it here either, but Penguin shows up saying, no, not that door. I'm over here. So he says, yeah, what do you want? What can I do for you? And he explains to Penguin his problem, and Penguin leads him into this warehouse of a bunch of oddities that he has, and eventually comes across this little thing of clay. And they said that this was taken from a Native American site that had a history of quote-unquote skinwalkers. And this clay is supposedly the source of their power. It allowed them to change their form as they pleased. So he hands it over to him, and basically Basil's like, I can't pay for this. I have nothing I can do. He's like, oh, don't worry. I will collect one day, one way or another. So Basil takes the clay and it immediately like bonds itself to him when he gets home, and he is able to change his appearance, but it takes like a lot of concentration on his part. So he really focuses and practices until finally he becomes a big like hit at parties and stuff. He practices putting on different like people's faces until he makes his way to an audition. And they say, all right, Basil, show us the Maniac. And so he puts on a performance and he's able to change his face into a horrifying looking face. And everyone's like, that's it. You're hired. You're in. So finally he's on a set and he does this performance. It's the same monologue he was performing for the guy in Arkham. And everyone's just like, amazing. Bravo. You want to go get drinks? Have my babies? Do whatever. So he starts getting bigger roles. He gets his like hands in the cements on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's making money like crazy. Everything's going great for him. And then he realizes one day that he's able to absorb the DNA of other people just by touching them, and then he can like store it away and use it later on. So he starts trying to get touch as many people as he can, just a little bit, just so he can have that repertoire of people he can pull from. And then finally the Penguin comes and collects, and he's like, look, I need you to do some jobs for me. And he is forced to basically kill people, take their appearances, and steal stuff so that nobody thinks any the wiser. And he at first hated the killing, but after a while he's like, well, if I just say it's a character, then it's okay. So he puts on this character of Clayface, the killer. And it starts eating away at him. Eventually one day, everyone's waiting for him on set, but he's just not able to concentrate enough. It's eating away too much that he isn't able to hold his form. And he basically tells him, it's screw you, I'm not doing this. And he gets blacklisted from acting in general for being difficult. So at that point, he consistently does more work for the Penguin for jobs and then starts doing stuff on his own. And yeah, that's how he led to Clayface nowadays. And he's recounting all this to the inmate next to him until finally he says, I as Clayface, I felt like I, as Basil Carlo, didn't exist anymore, but that was until I met you. And he looks over at the inmate. The inmate's dead. The inmate just died at some point in the middle of all this. So we see him being wheeled out, and that's when Basil's like, I am overcome by grief, but I realize I got to get out there. I got to be seen again. So he gets some food at a normal feeding time, and then he acts like he is choking on it. And immediately the doctors come in saying like, oh, get the containment tube around him. We got to take care of him as best we can. And he keeps on hacking up pieces of clay. And as the containment tube comes down, he manages to get one tiny piece of clay, barely even noticeable, outside the containment tube. So when the doctors leave, he's able to maneuver it, able to move it into place to make a crack in the containment tube. And he says, you'll learn, all of you, you'll learn how special I am, and you'll be sorry. So one issue of Clayface all locked up, and now he's out again. So yeah, I think this is just as good as origin as the one that I'm familiar with. Well, with him being an actor, and then he uses this special effects like clay makeup stuff. I think that this is very well done. I don't think that there's any reason that this shouldn't be an origin that can be held on to for a long period of time. Beyond that, I mean, Alex Maleev art is fantastic. It's a bit weird for me that it is linked so closely with Penguin, but I mean, it makes sense if there are other villains in the city that they are going to end up spawning some villains themselves. So yeah, I'm okay with it. It's just something I wasn't familiar with. Overall, this is probably I'd say 7.5. I think it's good. You know what? I'm going to bump it up to the 8, honestly, because it is just that art. Alex Maleev's art is really fantastic. I really cannot overstate that enough. So 8 for this. Looking forward to seeing what Clayface does on the outside once again. Catwoman number 24, written by Nocenti, art by Rafa Sandoval. So, last issue, officially, we had Joker's daughter getting in the way of Catwoman and Tinderbox and says, haha, I've got you now. There was also a Joker's daughter Villains Month special that kind of explained who she was. She's the leader of the third tribe down here in the Gotham Underground. Honestly, I can barely remember the name. But anyway, she shows up and says like, hey, girlfriends. And immediately they're like, oh God, she stinks. And she's wearing a horrible, rotten face of the Joker's. Like, what in the hell is this girl's deal? And we see that Catwoman is just immediately pissed off, regardless of what it is she's doing, because she doesn't like the Joker at all. And that's been in this book over and over again. So Tinderbox immediately tries to run away. Catwoman manages to get her tied up and says, nah, you're not going anywhere, and I'm going to beat the crap out of whoever this lady is for wearing the Joker's face. And she's like, oh, it's a face of power. Surely you understand that, right? And she's just like, yeah, I don't really care. So anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna beat you up now. And they talk about like all the things that have been going on. Like recapping. They're like, yeah, the Warhogs, they made a biotoxin and they're threatening the upper part of the world. And Dr. Phosphorus, he's going to burn the world down on him. What's going on with you? And she's like, oh, I rule the Nethers. We're in control of water. So I think I'll drown the world. And he's just like, great, cool, awesome. Super cool. And Joker's daughter then says, well, here's the thing, my tribe is ruled by women, so actually if you come with me, you would be safe. It's the safer to be with you. And then that ugly cat, which actually belongs to Joker's daughter, ends up scratching Catwoman and gives her enough pause for Joker's daughter to escape her clutches, I should say. And then the rest of the Nether tribe shows up, and they back Catwoman down a corridor, block off the sewer grate, and push her down into a big deep hole. So that's that. Then we go back above ground to Alice Tesla, who is the one who is making all of Catwoman's gear and stuff. And turns out that she's really invested in that there's no way that this funeral home that claims that it can turn your loved one's ashes into diamonds can actually do that. So there's something deeper going on there. So she's looking into the diamond that she has. And then she's like, oh, right, how's Catwoman doing? Oh, looks like she fell down a big deep hole. So we then see that she managed to hold herself up with a little grappling hook thing she's got. She pulls herself over to a side ledge, and she sees some warhogs making their way down an alley. And she says, well, screw these guys. And, oh, wait, they're carrying a body. and it has Rat Tail's clothes. Oh no, he must be dead. So she goes and attacks them, staying in the shadows. And then all of a sudden she sees one of the Warhogs running away, and he has a rat tail. It must be him. So she jumps in the way and says, wait a minute, hold on, it's me. I thought you were dead. And he explains, yeah, I fell down the hole. I switched bodies with one of the Warhogs. I took his place. They all think I'm someone else. And he basically blames her for everything because she started the war with Penguin that caused all this. And she's like, yeah, that's fair. That's pretty much my bad. Anyway, we've got a problem. I've got a biotoxin with me that this guy down here, the leader of the Warhogs, is going to launch on Gotham, or at least eventually he'll get there. I need to get it upstairs so that it can be analyzed and see if it's actually like something we can fight against. And they explain that there's some pneumatic tubes down in Charneltown, the one that Dr. Phosphorus rules, and they can use that to get the stuff upstairs. So she gives Alice a call on her little comms thing and says, hey, I need your help here. So real quick, we cut over to the Warhogs, and they basically say, okay, we've got dead Warhogs now. Something's going on. We got to retaliate. We have to avenge the death of everything going on. And the leader of the Warhogs is like, I'm still in charge. I say what we do. Don't feel like you're getting too hefty. And then this other guy says, I think I'll have a mutiny. And we just leave it at that. So Catwoman talking to Alice says, hey, I need to get this up to you. If I send it through a tube, can you track it? And she's like, well, what happened to the tracker? And he's like, oh, I put that onto Tinderbox's ass to make sure I knew where she was. And she's like, okay, well, if you don't have another tracker, then I can track the GPS signal itself, but you need to take off the bracelet and send it up with. So that's the plan currently, but they got to make their way to Charneltown first. Meanwhile, at Rock Bottom, Dr. Phosphorus is taking a bunch of pieces of coal and turning them into diamonds. The same diamonds that Alice was analyzing. And it turns out he's doing this as like a side gig, and he's sending them up to this funeral place, but each of them has a flaw that if hit with a certain harmonic frequency will cause them to shatter and explode very violently. And he's done this like hundreds of times. So he's about to launch his master plan. And at that point, a dude comes in and says, hey, the Warhogs broke into the pneumatic tubes and they stole some gems. And also your daughter got rejected by the Warhogs. And just like, all right, well, I don't really care much for my daughter. Whatever. But as if he's taking my daughter hostage, that's enough reason to launch a war against them. So then we go back to the Nethers, where Joker's daughter's with Tinderbox saying like, oh yeah, look, you got rejected by a guy where women are super rare. Men suck. Like, join our little group. It's totally good here. And she announces that her plan is basically that she's going to use her power over the water supply down here in the Gotham Underground and flood Charneltown. And as soon as that's gone, then she can come back and rule it as its new rightful heir, because Dr. Phosphorus will be gone. And she's like, now, hold on. I'm not sure about that. And she's like, well, it'll make you more powerful than your dad. How does that sound? And she's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure. So she flips the lever and says that, well, your dad will end up surviving somehow, because even he doesn't know he will yet. And she unloads the water. But then all of a sudden she realizes that her cat is on the other side of the waterproof doors. And so the cat is taken away by the water as she screams out, my cat, oh God, no. So we see Rat Tail and Catwoman making their way towards Charneltown. They hear that the water is coming and it just starts flooding them away. Alice manages to figure out what's going on with the diamonds and it seemingly explodes, possibly killing her. And Dr. Phosphorus sees the flood coming down, just being like, Jesus, Joker's daughter opened up the gates. Well, screw that. I guess I'm going to have to kill my daughter now, because I'm not going to let Joker's daughter survive. So, final page, we just see Rat Tail and Catwoman and the cat all floating in this flood. if I cared about any of these factions, I feel like this would be an interesting story, but like, I don't. And it has done nothing to make it, because like, here's the thing. The way that you connect with a faction is to show a reason to care about them. But so far, Catwoman has said, this group is launching a biotoxin. This group is run by Joker's daughter, which just sucks in general. And this group has a bunch of diamonds that they're going to explode up on the surface of Gotham. So none of them have anything likable. So they're all just disposable. And I don't like, now they're talking about like this basically Game of Thrones level crap of like, oh no, you've taken my daughter hostage. I launch a war against you, but then you've also flooded my place. So am I even able to do that? I don't care. And the fact that they've introduced these 3 places and then refer to them as like their group and then also the name of the person who's running it. So it's Joker Daughters and the Nethers. It's Dr. Phosphorus and Charneltown. It's just, I don't care. I just don't care. That's the long and short of it. So all in all, I'm going to give this one a 4.5 because I'm just so uninterested. Even the fact that Catwoman has found the thing that she ostensibly came down here for, the plot has changed so radically that like it doesn't matter. Now it's about a biotoxin or exploding diamonds or Joker's daughter. I need some sort of wrap up to a plot before you go crazy in the next thing. 4.5. Talon number 12, written by James Tynion IV, art by Emanuel Simeoni, I believe. So last issue we had basically a whole lot of build-up towards, hey, here's Bane, he's making his way to the mainland, and also it seems like he's going to be involved in Forever Evil. This one kind of just ignores that to the point where I think they're actually writing around a couple of plot holes they created. Anyway, we pick up in 1852 at Haley Circus, where we see a strongman is holding an entire train engine above an audience, and then he just smiles and lets it go. And it's immediately obvious this is Felix Harmon, the butcher Talon. So over the Caribbean Ocean, we see a bunch of bat bots, some drones flying over the water where they believe Santa Prisca should be, and they are reporting back, we're at the coordinates, there's no trace of the island, there's no trace of the warships, something's wrong. So deep beneath the Gotham Public Library, where the Court of Owls had their little stronghold, we see Calvin Rose and Batman breaking in, and Calvin's like, they should be here. I don't know why they're not. And Batman's like, yeah, they wiped the place clean. They knew you were coming. Also, I think this is for you. And he points to the note on the wall, written in blood from Felix saying, you're next. So another flashback, we see the Court of Owls enlisting Felix. They say like, yes, we need someone strong right now to be our newest Talon. So we choose you. And obviously they're supposed to be stealthy, but Felix is just not. So he goes around and basically openly kills whoever it is he wants. And at one point we see that they are told, or he is told, hey, we've got problems with this person. They run a orphanage. You got to go take care of the head of the orphanage. And he's just like, fair enough. So then we cut to modern day, and the Court of Owls is talking to Felix via like monitors, and they're like, dude, you are too insane. We're not dealing with you. I put a bomb in your head and I'm going to blow it up now. Bye. And clicks the button. And Felix is like, I do believe a couple issues ago I took out those bombs. Tee-hee. Now what are you going to do? And he's like, click. And he just turns off the monitor. Immediately Felix starts tearing through all the other Talons that are holding him prisoner. And he basically tells him like, look, rest of the Court of Owls, I'm done being a stooge. I've been out for a century. I've got some work to catch up on. So next we cut back to Wayne Enterprises, where Lucius Fox is essentially helping out the entire gang. He was told by Batman, like, hey, these guys, they've been through a lot. Could you help them out? Especially Casey here. She's missing an arm and an eye. So do whatever you can. And we see Lucius is making a prosthetic arm, basically, for Casey. So Casey's recovering in a hospital room, and Lucius is showing her the mock-ups, the little hologram of the prosthetic arm, and Calvin's like, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna kill him for you, for everything he did. And Casey just smacks him upside the head and just be like, okay, enough of that. You gotta pull yourself together, man. The biggest thing here is my daughter. I don't care what happens to him. We will get to him eventually. You need to find Sarah now. And he's just like, on it. I can do that. Peace. So he is about to leave, and then all of a sudden, window crashes open, and one of the guys is thrown through, and he's just like, hey, Batman's here. He wants to talk to you. So Calvin goes out to talk to Batman. Meanwhile, Lucius is like, hey, your father was the one that like designed some of his stuff based off of my work. I've taken those designs back and I have improved them. And Casey's like, nowhere near good enough, old man. Let me show you how it's done. So she starts planning her own prosthetic. Meanwhile, Batman and Calvin, basically this is the part where I think this is where we're covering plot holes, is Batman chews out Calvin and says, dude, if you didn't run from me back when we first met, this all would have been solved by now. And he's like, right, I get it. Sorry, I'm a crappy superhero. Anyway, tell me about Bane. Tell me what he's up to. What's going on? And Batman's like, yeah. So Santa Prisca is gone and his warships are gone and I don't know where he is. And all I'm detecting is some chronal energy. And the reason I think that's kind of weird is because over in the Batman or Forever Evil Arkham War book, Bane just shows up as normal. There's no mention of any chronal energy or anything. So I think that they kind of they didn't talk and they didn't realize, oh, wait, Bane can't possibly be here and like also be leaving for Forever Evil at the same time, because that would mean Batman should be dead and Forever Evil should be happening. But that's not part of the story. So oopsie. Anyway, they basically says, all right, so what are we doing now? And Batman says, look, here's the thing. I'm going to help you. I'm going to assist you in saving Sarah and taking out this butcher guy and the Court of Owls in general. I'm all for it. But you are too dangerous. You are still a Talon. You have too much in you. If you step out of line even a little bit, I'm throwing you into a cryotube in Blackgate. This is your last mission. So we then cut back to 1862 again, to when the butcher has to take care of that orphanage, the head of the orphanage, and a young boy gets out of bed, hearing a noise, sneaks into the head of the house's room, finds her bloodied and destroyed, and Felix just standing there like, well, guess I can't hide it now. And so he kills every single person in the boy's house and then sets fire to it. And that is the night that it was no longer a Talon. He became the Gotham Butcher in the lore of Gotham. So at that point, we see the boy's house nowadays. It's all grown over with plants. Felix makes his way inside and he hears a voice talking to him saying like, ah, yes, you were a whole chapter in the book I read. You burned this house down to the ground and killed everyone inside. And Felix is like, not in that order. And as we see, turns out this is Sebastian Clark. He's still alive. He's still here. And he's like, yeah, I made a lot of plans to take down the Court of Owls and none of them worked. So how would you like to work with me? And Felix is like, what do you have to offer that I can't possibly do on my own? And he's like, oh, well, I've got something simple but totally elegant, and it's something that's really going to make the world see your talents. And he's like, all right, I'm listening. Tell me what's going on. And basically, in the end, the plan, as Sebastian Clark throws out, is like, yep, we're going to take out everything the Court of Owls cares about, and that is Gotham City as a whole. Let's kill Gotham City. So that's the book. It felt more like an interstitial issue to me. Again, it felt like we were covering plot holes. It felt like there was the stuff that we were building up to with Bane and Forever Evil. And then I think there had to be basically a transitionary point where we couldn't use Bane anymore. And obviously we have the Butcher this whole time. But I think the original idea, just how I was feeling it was going to end up with Bane versus the Butcher, because obviously they're very similar in a lot of ways. And obviously Bane would come out on top, but it felt like that was the way the story was moving. But because Bane is now locked in an event, we have to change that. Long time ago, years ago actually, I did talk to Tynion about this, and essentially he didn't want to use Bane in the story in the first place, but editorial said, nah, you need some bigger actual Bat characters in your book, so put him in there. So I feel like at this point they're just dicking him around, which, yeah, they kind of are. But it's still, he's doing the best of it. I think there is some good surprises here. It's cool that we got Batman working with Calvin now, because Batman, of course, has to be in every of one of these books eventually. So I'm going to say this is probably a solid, I'm going to say 6.5. Just because it's an interstitial. If this had more plot to it, I think it might have gotten 7.5, but it is just lacking a little bit because it feels like a completely skippable issue in general. It's just moving some pieces around so we can get to the next part of the plot. So yeah, still good, just not great. Larfleeze number 4, written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, art by Scott Kolins. So, last issue, Wanderer is left with Stargrave out to explore the universe, and to keep Larfleeze busy, she freed all of the Orange Lantern constructs inside of Larfleeze's ring so that they can get some payback. This issue, basically just 2 parts in general. First is the Larfleeze part, where the Orange Lanterns just start attacking him and go nuts. They basically say like, oh, we're going to beat the crap out of you. And Larfleeze is like, why? What did I ever do to you? And he's like, seriously? You enslaved us, man. You killed us and then forced us into your ring. And he's like, yeah, and everyone's like, is he stupid? And then they realize, no, he's actually just that selfish that he doesn't even realize he's done anything wrong. So they all start blasting against him. And he's confused. He has no idea what's going on. He's wondering how the orange light can be used against him. And they're like, dude, we are Orange Lanterns now too. We've split the light and we are able to use it against you. And he manages to make a construct that takes like a lava pool and blasts them, which does take them out for a little bit, but they immediately grab him, slam him back down to Earth. And we see one by one different ones that are attacking him. The biggest one is, for me, just said it, Glomulus. That's it. Because Glomulus, we did actually see, is a construct that was in Green Lantern New Guardians. And it turns out he was actually the first one that was imprisoned in the ring. So Glomulus goes to eat him. A couple other ones are trying to like tear him apart as he fights back. And there's a joke in here where they say, oh, we're going to tear this bastard to pieces. And Larfleeze says, I'm not a bastard. My parents were legally married. It's like, that's not that kind of bastard. And he's like, oh, right. Well, yes, then Larfleeze is the greatest bastard in the universe. So at that point they say, all right, well, fine, we'll let you live, but as our slave. And he's like, excuse me? Half my backstory is slave. I will never be a slave again. So then we cut over to the Wanderer and Stargrave plot, and as she zooms around the universe, she's basically just pointing to things saying, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? And Stargrave just keeps on saying, that's a star, and another star, and a third star. Yeah, there are a lot of stars out in the universe. And she's like, well, is there anything else that we could see? And she's like, well, near those stars there are planets, and on those planets there are things and people and animals. And she's like, I guess that's kind of good. Sorry, I'm a little bit zoning out. It's in my nature. I'm fragmented because of all the billions of years I've spent looking into parallel dimensions and all that stuff. And so he's like, oh, yeah, well, just recently you were talking about setting me free. And she's like, no, I wasn't. He's like, all right, well, yeah, worth a shot at least. So they say that they want to go visit her sister who was taken over a nearby planet. Her name is Dirge of All Sorrows. And she is able to, as we come down to this planet, which seems to be run by Victorian robots, all of them are miserable and crying all the time. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, like, you're around here for 10 seconds. You're going to want to slit your own wrist. And he's like, could we, I don't know, maybe protect me from that? And she's like, yeah, no, I'll protect you. But just in case, try not to get within like 5 feet of her. Just keep your distance a little bit. So they land at her place and walk in. And we do get a little thing here where basically Stargrave is saying, like, you know, if I bother you with my snarkiness so much, well, how about you just set me free? And she's like, no. I like your snarkiness. I like how you're able to keep up with me wittingly. Also, why are you so concerned about going back to Larfleeze, like, or getting away from me? I'm not the one who's, like, treating you awfully. I at least remember your name and I'm treating you right. And he's like, yeah, well, you also threatened to cut off my balls. So it's a little give and take there. Anyway, we arrive inside the house of Dirge, and she's like this horrible scarecrow-looking woman. And as she's introduced, Stargrave is like, oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. And she's like, pleasure? I know nothing of pleasure. Everything has been misery. Even when I look at a newborn child, all I see is the day it's going to die. He's like, oh, it's kind of just a saying. I didn't really mean pleasure. And she's like, oh, and yeah, pleasure to meet you too. So then we cut back to a planet called Unicorn 12, where there are some centipede-looking creatures that are just so happy in life. And they say, hey, Bob, isn't it a wonderful day to be here on Unicorn 12, where everything's great all the time, perfect weather, like every other day, and everyone's so happy, and they're shooting stars all the time, and they look up in the sky and say, hey, look, another shooting star, let's make a wish. And then they realize, wait a minute, that one doesn't look like a normal star. It looks a bit orange, and it looks like it's coming this way. Hey, Bob, I think we're going to die. And then all of a sudden, a huge explosion. It's Larfleeze and the rest of the Corps. They've crashed down on this paradise planet. And Larfleeze basically says, okay, that's enough. I'm done with this. I am going to kill you all once again. And he's like, oh, you think you can do that? It is all of us against you. There's no way. And now we've got Orange Lantern power. There's no way we can lose this battle. So they all start moving in on Larfleeze, start attacking him, start beating him up. And Larfleeze is basically unable to do a thing. But as each one of them goes for the killing blow, they stop each other and say, no, 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 he's mine. I deserve the killing blow. That belongs to me. And they all state their reasons as to why. And finally, as they're arguing, one of them chimes up and they're like, hold on, guys. I don't think we're going to be able to kill him, period. And they say, why not? And they say, well, can't you feel it? Are drawn to him? It's being drawn in the same way as like other lantern rings are drawn to their battery. I think we can't kill him because he's the battery now. And they all realize that he has absorbed all the orange light. He is the battery. So they have to keep him alive. And they say, you know what that means, right? We actually do get to keep him as a slave. Oh my God, this is so much fun. This is going to be great. So they chain him up. They use their rings on him to draw out their power. And then they say, great, now let the torture begin, as they fly through the stars with Larfleeze. So yeah, two completely separate plots going on here. Frankly, I'm not sure how they're going to end up converging. Frankly, don't really care. It's a fun little book. I gotta say, some of the jokes land better than others. I think that the Paradise Planet, I may have not played the joke off as well as it was written, but it was a nice little thing, because you just turn the page and it's just like, isn't everything great? Everything's happy and so cool right after the whole Dirge of All Sorrows bit. It was a nice little transitionary joke. And then the whole page where it's like, hey, Bob, I think we're going to die. Pfft, also good. Overall, I'd say this book still probably is just like, I'm gonna give it a 7. It probably deserves more of like a 6.5, but I'm having fun with it, and it really is the only just kind of like straight comedy book that DC's putting out right now. So I'm down with it. I'm enjoying it. I can't really say how I expect it to go from here, but we have an Orange Lantern core, so that counts for something. But yeah, it's still just like straight 7. Aquaman number 24, written by Geoff Johns, art by Paul Pelletier. So last issue, we got kind of a big shakeup where Aquaman fell into a coma, and then the dead king seemingly was about to take over the Seven Seas, and then Volko woke him up and said, you've been unconscious for 6 months. So this issue picks up with a flashback to Amnesty Bay. Someone's narrating the story of how Arthur's father met Arthur's mother. It was a dark and stormy night. He went out to the lighthouse to warn his ship about some rocks. He fell into the water, and his mom saved his dad. So that was that. But we see that Arthur is basically hearing this from Volko, and he's saying, hey, I don't care about that. You just said I've been unconscious for 6 months. What the hell? And he's saying, yeah. Well, you telepathically tried to control the Kraken. Your brain needed some time to heal up. And immediately Arthur's like, what about Atlantis? What about Mara? Where's Mara? And she's like, I don't know. I saw her. She was facing down the dead king. I don't know what's up. And then Arthur asks where they are, and he opens up the tent and sees that they are in the middle of the Antarctic. And he basically is like, why are we here? He's like, it's safe. The dead king can't get to us here. You're good. And Volko's like, look, whether you like me or not, all I've ever wanted is the best for you and for Atlantis. And in order to know what's going on, I need you to trust me. There is a crack in the ice over there. It is where the dead king's tomb originally was. You got to go down there. And he's like, okay, well, I don't trust you, and I'm not going alone. So grabs Volko, jumps down into the tomb, and makes his way in. And we see there are some scientists there. Apparently they were back from like issue 18 or something. Been a while, but regardless, they make their way in, and they find the tomb with these 6 giant statues over top of it. And he says, this is the secret of the 7 seas. And there's this big ice throne there. And Volko says, if you want any answers, go sit on that throne. And he's like, this is the most obvious trap I've ever seen, Volko. No, I'm not going to go sit on that throne. What's with you wanting me to take the throne? And Volko says, yes, I do want you to take the throne, but here's the thing. It doesn't belong to you. And Arthur's like, what are you saying? He's like, get in the throne. He's like, fine, whatever, Jesus. So he gets up, he sits in the throne, and then immediately his body starts getting encased in ice. And he's like, God damn it, Volko, I knew this was a trap. He's like, it's not a trap. It's just necessary. You got to do it. Just it's going to be painful. Just deal with it. So he's wrapped up in ice, and then we start getting backstory of Atlantis. So there was a king named King Atlan of Atlantis. He was the architect of the entire city. It was up on the ground, and he was, he had a wife and kids. He was a great king, and his main thing, though, was that he wanted Atlantis to be the hub of like the world, and there were all these wars going on. He essentially fought for peace, and he made it so that Atlantis was like free for anybody to use. All these different warring tribes and factions and stuff, these nations were able to come to Atlantis and all be one people. But if you know anything about the past, it's that people historically are really, really racist. So despite the fact that he's pushing for all of these people to join together and whatnot, I believe even his own brother basically said, no, that's stupid. And he basically held a mutiny, and he sits on the throne, and this is King Orin. And he's like, yeah, no, all your race mixing stuff is awful. I don't want any part of this. Atlantis will be pure. And so Atlan tries to fight back against the mutinous forces, and he's basically all on his own. The rest of Atlantis was fed up with having to share their home with outsiders, so he tells his family to run, and he says he'll follow up soon afterwards. He gets impaled by his brother's trident, but he does manage to fight them off, dive into the water, and escape. And he reaches the point that he was supposed to meet up with his family, but they didn't arrive. Seemingly, they were all killed. So at that point, he's pissed off enough. He goes into hiding. He uses some magic and stuff from the people that he was like working with from other nations to make the 6 golden items that the others were using, the 6 treasures of Atlantis. And once he built all those, he returned to Atlantis and fought. And this entire time, he's been a silent king. He never said a word until finally, in the middle of the fighting, he thrust his throne or his scepter down into Atlantis, and all of it fell down into the ocean, sinking Atlantis once and for all. And 90% of the people of Atlantis died that day, but 3 of them survived. 10% survived from 3 different tribes. There were 7 tribes, 7 kingdoms of Atlantis beforehand, 4 of them being lost, 3 of them survived. One of them was the Atlanteans, one of them was the Zebellians, and one of them was actually the Trench. That used to be a people of Atlantis. And Aquaman's like, what? What? So he busts out of the ice after seeing that, and he's like, okay, Volko, tell me what I just saw there. What is all that? And Volko's like, well, you are a descendant from King Orin, not from King Atlan, which means the dead king, that guy, he is actually King Atlan, which means you are descendant of the usurper and you actually don't have a claim to the throne so long as he's around. So yeah, your ancestors are the villains of the story. So yeah, that's a lot. This is a big lore issue. This is a big one here. I think it's great. I think it's very well written. Obviously, Geoff Johns had a plan going into this. He decided having the trench be a people of Atlantis is interesting, to say the least. I'm sure that we'll get them back if that's the case. Yeah, no, it just seems like it's Geoff Johns doing what he does best, is that he takes what has already been established in Aquaman lore, or any lore for that matter, and he just makes these tiny little tweaks to it that explain something while adding a much bigger purpose to it all. So he invented the trench, and maybe he had these plans from the beginning, but like he says, oh yeah, no, they tie into Atlantean history in a much deeper way than you can imagine. And yeah, I'm down for that. This is super interesting. So overall, I think this is the art's a little bit weak for me. It looks good. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but something in the flashback sequence just doesn't, it's a bit confusing to look at times, probably because they're all new characters. But I still think it just barely creaks out the 8. I think if this had a more punchy or stylistic art style for like the flashbacks, it probably would have creeped out to an 8.5 or even a 9. But it just squeaks out the 8 for me. So very well written, super lore heavy. Looking forward to seeing what it results in whenever we get back to it. The Flash, number 24, written by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, art by Francis Manapul. So last time we had Barry being drained of Speed Force powers by Reverse Flash, and then we got a tie-in issue to Villains Month where we saw that Reverse Flash took Barry back in time to a night where he could kill his own father in order to stop him from being abusive during their childhood. So pick up there where Reverse Flash is essentially killing Iris and Daniel West's father, because of course Daniel West, if you didn't know that by now. And he's really going ham on it. And as he is, basically, he succeeds. He kills him. And Flash yells out no. There's like nothing he can do to stop him. Reverse Flash starts beating the ever-living crap out of Flash. He takes young Daniel and throws him across the room when he accidentally gets in the way. And as he is absorbing more and more of Flash's powers, he starts growing more and more monstrous looking, to the point where Iris sees this and calls him out and says, "You're a monster." And seeing young Iris call him out like this gives him that little crisis of conscience where he's like, "Dear Lord, what have I done? I've become a monster. This was all for her and all for both of us." And so Flash stands up and does his talking thing where he's like, "Don't go back in time, man. It's always bad. It never ends up the way you want it to. You just got to roll with the punches. Bad things happen. Deal with it." And so Reverse Flash starts crying and he's like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to do." And Flash tells him, "You just got to let go. Let me handle this. I'll fix everything." So he touches Daniel, starts absorbing back his own Speed Force power. We start getting some philosophical thing about like, oh yeah, I started absorbing his negative Speed Force energy and blah blah blah, and it gave me time to think. And he uses the powers to then run back through the time stream and somehow undo what Reverse Flash just did. So now his father never died. None of that stuff ever happened. They just managed to undo it all. And Flash arrives back. Daniel West is no longer the Reverse Flash, or at least it appears not. And Flash has his powers back. And he arrives back in front of Iris. And Flash explains everything that he did. Daniel's like totally exhausted, nothing he can do. And Iris comes up being like, "Daniel, you went back and tried to kill our father? What the hell? Why would you do this? Tell me you're not capable of this." And he's like, "Yep, I was. And I'd do it again. And when I get my powers back, I am going to do it again." And Flash is like, "I don't intend on you ever getting your powers back." So at that point, Dr. Elias stands up and he's like, "Flash, you went back in time. You were reckless. I'm going to take away your powers now." And he holds up like the Speed Force gun. Flash just zooms behind him, elbows him in the face, takes the gun and says, nah, screw you. Speed Force is my gift. It's a gift for humanity. It's my responsibility. Stop being a prick, Elias. So the rest of this issue doesn't have a lot of content. It's just a lot of Barry musing on like, look, bad things happen, and putting it behind me, ignoring it, is not something that is conducive towards a healthy lifestyle. I do actually need to face the bad things that happen behind me, but we'll get to that. We see the anniversary party for Patty's parents. Barry does finally show up. And he's like, hey, Patty, I took care of the Speed Force killer. And she's like, I don't care. Just dance with me. So they have a nice little romantic moment. We then see Barry going over to Dr. Elias's lab as he stands there in the ruins. And he's like, hey, if you ever try to mess with me again, I'm going to take you out. This is your only warning. And then he zooms out of there. We see Iris visiting Daniel in Iron Heights. And she's like, why would you try to kill Dad? And it's like, because he's a prick. He was the worst. He drove us apart. And she's like, no, you did. We always could have been together. You were the one who was a prick. Bye. And so she leaves. And finally, based off all that stuff I was saying about how he needs to confront his past, way back when he told Patty to basically hide the files about his mother's murder so that he couldn't investigate it anymore. He was leaving it in the past and moving forward. But now he realizes, well, actually, I probably should confront that. That is part of my past I do need to deal with. So he looks around the entire apartment. He figures out where Patty hid it, and he starts investigating his mother's murder again. And so Patty wakes up the next morning. She sees on the news that there is a jet falling out of the sky and someone must move quickly in order to stop it. And she sees the papers on the ground and says, oh, Barry, what are you going to do? And we see Barry saying, yep, I run for myself, for her, for everybody, because no matter what, I will always keep trying. And then it's a big old the end here, because to the best of my knowledge, this is Francis Manapul's last issue. Next up, we're getting, I believe, Patrick Zurcher is the regular on the art. But Brian Buccellato will still be the writer. So, I don't know. I feel like Reverse Flash, it was just too easy. You know? Like, it was essentially, it wasn't a matter of outthinking him. It wasn't a matter of, pulling some, running faster than he has before, which I'm not saying is a good ending. But I think the sweet Jesus, I've become my own monster thing is it's good. It's a fine enough ending. It just needs to have more time to breathe and get to that point. Because from the point where he really develops into this monstrous form, it's like 3 panels before he's like, oh no, I am evil. It's like, yeah, clearly. And the fact that he comes out of it saying, I did nothing wrong, I would still kill my dad. I don't know. It felt like a bit too easy of an ending for all this buildup we were doing on Reverse Flash. As for the other stuff at the end, it's fine. It just feels like we're kind of moving Barry into a different place, whether that's for the better or for the worst. I guess we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just neutral on this issue. I think that it's got some good points to it, but it doesn't quite feel like a punchy enough thing for here is how we wrapped up the Reverse Flash story. So I don't know. Overall, I think I'd probably just give it a 6.5. It's just not blowing me away. It's just kind of oh yeah. And then they even have a caption in this box where Flash says, I don't know how I did that. I don't think I'll ever understand the Speed Force entirely. It's like, okay, so it's a cop-out is really what it is. So yeah, 6.5. Disappointing, but not awful. All-Star Western number 24, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Moritat. So last issue, being in the future now, Jonah Hex was somehow roped into a mass shooting, and he went into a gun shop and shot the guy before it even started. And while being held on trial, Bruce Wayne came in and said, I got some lawyers for you, Jonah. So we get a recap page of that from the news, basically saying yeah, he claims to be a dude from the past. He might be a little crazy. But once we get into the court scene, it looks like we're basically not in the trial itself before a jury. It looks like we're just moving to dismiss in general. And the basic breakdown here is that the first few pages are dedicated to, no, seriously, this guy knows stuff that like no one else should be able to know. He is definitively like a real time traveler. And the judge is like, that's not the question here. He shot a man using a gun that he didn't own. Like that's, and also he has a bunch of other crimes that he committed before he got here. Like there's a lot going on. And essentially Bruce Wayne's lawyers are like, excuse me, Judge, a lot of people are making this a case about the Second Amendment, gun rights and stuff like that. I know that you don't believe that guns should be protected, Mr. Judge Man, but the mayor wants to speak to him, and I know how much you want to build a name for yourself, so maybe you shouldn't be making this case against him. And the judge, being a total hypocrite, is like, oh, yes, of course, I want to be with the mayor. So the entire charges are all dropped. He's entirely set to go free. And Jonah is basically like, yeah, all right, whatever. Thanks a lot. You probably spent a lot of money, same way that your great-great-grandfather did. And Bruce still calls him out like, you seriously believe you're Jonah Hex from the past? And he's like, yeah, I am. And I know a bunch of stuff about your families that even you guys don't know. And they just test him a little bit. And he's like, yeah, here's some adventures I went on. Vandal Savage kidnapped your great-great-grandmother. So that's a thing. Anyway, I'm a bounce. I don't want to meet the mayor. I've done enough of politicians. I'm leaving. And Bruce and Jeremiah Arkham basically walk out together. And Bruce is like, so do you think he's going to be okay? And Jeremiah's like, no. He's from the 19th century to the 21st. You can't just adjust to life like that. There's no way he's going to be fine. So we then see 1 month later, out in the West, Jonah is riding a motorcycle along with his girlfriend, Gina, and they're making their way into an old Western town that still is somehow alive. And she's like, oh, yeah, let's go find a bite to eat. I'll check into a motel. Makes her way over to the motel. Guy behind the desk is like, Jesus Christ, what happened to your face? And he's like, it was, burned by Apaches. What about yours? And he's like, very funny. So he suggests a place to go eat. And the guy makes a comment on how essentially Burning Man is going on in the desert nearby. And he calls it a weirdo sex festival. And so Gina's like, hey, you want to go to the weirdo sex festival? And he's like, depends what kind of weird we're talking about. So in the bar later on, as they're getting some food, everyone's like, oh, hey, I saw you on TV. You were that guy. Did you really duck out of the way of an RPG? You're so cool. You're such a manly man. And all the girls are drooling over him. And Gina's like, yeah, well, he's mine. And I'm about to go have some fun with him anyway. So let's go. So they make their way out. We see a man smoking a cigarette, watching them as they leave from the shadows. He throws down the cigarette and says, tosser. So we'll obviously get back to that. Meanwhile, we see that the whole reason that they've made their way out here is that Jonah apparently buried some treasure out here in the desert, and he figures it's probably still around. Nobody found it, so they're off to find it. They make their way down into a deep canyon. Jonah brings along some guns because why not? And as they make their way down, Jonah and Gina have this conversation about how Jonah, being called a cowboy after Clint Eastwood means a very different thing from being called a cowboy in the actual Old West, because a cowboy was not a position that was the thing that Jonah does. It was instead a very low down position. So he doesn't like being called a cowboy, but regardless, they make their way down to the end. Jonah digs up the treasure chest, pops it open, and Gina's like, wow, yeah, there's a lot of gold in here. No matter what, this is going to be worth a lot, but let me see. She makes a call up to someone she's friends with, gets an estimate on it, and she's like, I don't know how many boxes you have, but just this first one is enough to set us for life. And he's like, great, let's go get drunk. So they ride back into town, get to a pawn shop that he basically says, yeah, you got 6.25 pounds of raw gold. That's going to be a little over $100,000. I need to hit the bank first, but yeah, I'll take it. So at that point, Jonah starts looking through the glass cases at all the guns that have been pawned in, and he's like, hey, how much to buy one of these? And he's like, usually I need to wait a day or two and you need to like get background checks, but because you've got $100,000, I'll fudge the paperwork on this. And he hands him over a Desert Eagle and says, yeah, you know, it's a little bit different from what you might be used to, but it's solid. And Jonah tries out the Desert Eagle on a test range, and he's like, Jesus, this thing's amazing. I'll take two. So at that point, they end up driving by Weirdo Sex Festival, and they make their way in, and Gina is immediately greeted by a woman who just kisses her. And Gina's like, so Jonah, does that make you jealous? And he's like, I don't know, and you do whatever you want. And he's like, oh, wow, this is great. Fantastic. So they decide to hang out at Burning Man for a while. And then all of a sudden, Jonah is seeing these figures in the crowd that have like shadowy elements about them. They don't quite look human. And Gina's like, I don't see anything. What's going on? And then out of the crowd comes John Constantine. And he's like, yeah, they're like the krill of the demon world. They're called the Kiathi. And they siphon tiny bits of life from people, just like a second or two. And it sustains them for weeks. You shouldn't be able to see them, though, Jonah. That's weird. And so they introduce themselves to each other. And he's like, yeah, here's the thing. And it's truly terrifying. The Kiathi typically hang around larger demons. And the fact that there are so many here, and the fact that this place is just a breeding ground for sin, specifically lust in general, we got a big demon problem on our hand. And we cut inside of this tent, and there is this huge demon that's bound in chains that looks like it's about to bust out. So yeah, it's dense. I like it. I think it's a good turn for Jonah. I like how he's still doing the Old West thing, but it's just like modern day, and we're getting a bunch of other characters from the DCU in there. We made it so that money's never a problem. Obviously, that was always going to be a continuing factor here, is that in the Old West, you could get by on a lot less than you could nowadays. So if we just tell them, yeah, you've got tons of money, we never need to question it. We never need to go back to that. So I'm down with that. Overall, I'd say this is probably just a straight 7 for me. It's got some promise. I don't think that it's quite hitting on all cylinders yet. And it does take a real, like, I kind of skipped over it, but that opening few pages in the court scene really do make a political statement about, like, gun rights and stuff like that. And while it's decently well spoken, it does feel very preachy. So, I'm iffy on that, but it's whatever. It's still a 7 overall. The Green Team, Teen Trillionaires, number 5, written by Art Baltazar and Franco, art by Ig Guara. So, last issue was kind of the wrap-up of the first plot of this book, but it ended with Riot, who is actually Commodore's father, being kind of torn apart by the suits and all the nanites in them. This issue picks up with the Green Team and a rocket ship going to space. And Commodore apparently has not really told anybody what's going on. It's all been kind of secretive, but we do know that we're on a meteor, or we're going to a meteor, that is owned by a place called the Belichick Temple. And Mo is asking around like, hey, are we licensed to fly a rocket ship? And the sister chimes in and like, oh yeah, they went to space camp. It was licensed by NASA. We're good. So at this point, Commodore's explaining, okay, I don't know how my suit moves like that. I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not able to control it as well as I'd like to. Also, Cecilia, her arm, it's off. She didn't seem to suffer any like trauma or anything. There's not even blood. It's just kind of gone. But like, I can get her a new arm. I can get her a prosthetic. Cecilia, I'll get you a new prosthetic. And she's like, no. You ain't touching my arm again. I don't want anything touching this again. I'll take a stump. Thank you very much. So everything goes quiet for a minute, until finally they see the meteor approaching, and Houston is just like, you know what, screw this, call me when we get there. And he makes his way back and says, I'm going swimming. And immediately they're like, wait, what? And so Mo goes back to check what in the hell he meant, and turns out that they have somehow in 0G a swimming pool. And they explain it all with like, oh, there's stasis rods and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But there's a swimming pool on the ship. And Houston and Commodore start shouting at each other. And basically Houston's just pissed off because we're doing all this stuff, but Houston believes that Commodore is only doing it for fame and money purposes. He's not doing it to like help Cecilia out, despite the fact she's clearly going through a hard time. And so Commodore finally explains more of like, okay, look, the whole reason we're going there is because I think my father was working with the guy who runs the Belichick company, and the original like prototype suits of armor are on this meteor because that's where he holds a lot of his tech stuff. So it's not on Earth and can't be like gotten to. So we're going to go up there. We're going to check it out. Also, I think that he plans on stripping this meteor of all of its resources and then firing them back down to Earth and getting ultra uber wealthy off of that. So yeah, all that's going on. And then Houston calls him out saying like, none of that has anything to do with Cecilia. None of that at all. What's going on? And then Mo points out that there's a bunch of ice buildup on the outside of the ship, and that's not usual, so they need to very quickly get back up to the cockpit. They explain that they are unable to adjust the controls of the ship, so they're going to end up crashing. And Commodore's like, yeah, no, it's a crash, but don't worry about it. But before we can even finish out, Mo is just confessing everything. He's telling his bodyguard, like, I'm the one who's been sabotaging your attempts to talk to my father. Oh, and, what was her name? LL. I think it's Lena. I could be wrong. It says, LL, before we crash, I've always wanted to tell you. And then they, like, hit the planet, or hit the meteor, but because they're still so light in terms of 0G, they just kind of like bounce a little bit and come to a nice stop. And Commodore's like, see, I told you, nothing to worry about. We were always going to be fine. And so LL and the bodyguard start talking to Mo, being like, so what was that all about? And he's like, nice weather today, isn't it? So at that point, he looks over some computer monitors, Commodore in Houston, and they realize that they're going to strip the meteor as he predicted, but they're then going to crash the meteor into Earth on purpose, and it's a big enough meteor that that's actually a real big problem. So at that point, the monitors all freeze up, and we see that protecting this meteor on the paycheck of Belichick is Icicle. He's here, and he's like, well, I didn't think anyone actually be able to make it up here, but now I got to earn a paycheck. So he's about ready to start fighting against all of them. And they ask like, oh, where's the rest of Belichick's team? He's like, don't worry about it. It's just me right now. I'm going to make a ton of money. And Commodore calls him out for like, oh, what Belichick's doing is wrong and immoral. And he's just like, dude, you're a trillionaire. That doesn't happen without you breaking the rules a few times. Like, clearly you're also in the wrong, but maybe I'm missing something. So at that point, we see the bodyguard gets a fire extinguisher and like aims it at Icicle enough for them to get back onto the ship. But Commodore's then like, okay, no, but we have to fight him. We have to stop them from crashing the meteor onto Earth. So I'm going to focus. Just tell me when he's about to attack us in the ship. And he pulls up his suit. And then all of a sudden he fires off an ice blast. They warn Commodore. And he's able to use the nanites in his suit to communicate with the ship to get it to dodge out of the way. And it's like, holy crap, you can do that? And he's like, yeah, it's just adrenaline. I'm concentrating. I can make it work. So tell me when he's about to fire again. And he says, well, okay, well, he's going to be expecting that the second time, so you better do something interesting. And so he's about to fire again, and he ends up launching the ship into Icicle, where Icicle barely manages to dodge out of the way. So at that point, Commodore says, yeah, I'm going to give you guys a chance to escape. Start boating up the ship. I'll catch up to you. Do not leave me behind. I will catch up to you, but start getting it off the ground. So he exits off the ship. He starts fighting against Icicle. Icicle immediately is just like, dude, you're out of your league. You don't even know how to work that suit. I've been using my powers for decades. So he immediately freezes Commodore's suit. He's unable to like move or do anything. He even separates the fingertips from the suit itself, so that way he's unable to interact with it. And he's like, yeah, no, you're stuck. There's nothing you can even do here. So while you're stuck, I'm going to destroy your ship. So while you watch. So he makes his way over the ship, starts tearing it apart piece by piece. And as we see all the crew members inside, all the green team, they start evacuating the ship. Houston decides to stay behind in order to give him a fighting chance. He throws down the extra suit that Cecilia can wear down to Cecilia and gives her a big kiss as they say goodbye. And Mo sees the kiss, so obviously that secret's out. So the rest of the crew seems like it managed to get off the ship except for Houston, as Icicle finally tears it completely limb from limb, and there seemingly are no survivors. I say seemingly a lot in there because obviously Houston's fine. Like, no duh. It would actually be very ballsy of them if they did kill him here, but it just feels like they have not done nearly enough to earn that. So, yeah, it's fine. It's an okay issue. It definitely feels like they had a 6-issue plan, and then they ended up having 8 issues of the book. And so they kind of had to pivot halfway through to add an additional 2 issues. And it doesn't, I don't know, like this issue just doesn't flow right from the rest of the book that I've read. It just feels like a hard turn. Like we're in space now and they just say, oh, and there's this other company that we've never mentioned before, but they're the real evil ones. It's like, okay, buddy, whatever you say. Yeah, it's not great. It's definitely, it has these ideas. It's just not delivering. I think that's my biggest problem. So I'm going to say this is just a flat 6. I'm not that entertained by it, but who knows? Maybe they'll wow me and they actually will have killed Houston. Or maybe, I don't know, they'll crash a meteor into Earth. Something, anything. Shake it up a little bit. Teen Titans number 24, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Angel Unzueta. So, who cares about the last issue? But the last thing that happened was in Forever Evil, where the Teen Titans went up against Johnny Quick, and then he messed with Kid Flash enough that they were pulled through time. And that's where we pick up here. So we pick up a couple years ago where Bunker is just getting his powers or just experimenting with them. He's in church praying to God saying like, hey, I got these powers. I don't know what you want me to do. I'm sorry if I'm upsetting you with it. Please just give me a sign. And then all of a sudden behind him, there's a flash of blue light and Red Robin shows up and says, Bunker, what's today? And he gets a lowdown on it. He's like, great, cool. I need you to do me a favor because this is all important to keep the time stream going. You need to go and hop on this train and you'll eventually meet back up with me, but don't ever tell me that I told you to go onto that train. Okay? I'll explain it all then. And then he phases back out through time and Bunker's like, all right, guess I'll do that then. Then we go to ancient Egypt and there is an army of aliens called the Sunturians that have literal tanks, and they say, we are going to take over this planet. Tomorrow the rivers will bleed as red as our sun. And we see a shadowy figure looking at his watch saying they'll get here in 3, 2, and then all of a sudden crashing down into the army is Wonder Girl and Superboy. And it's like, okay, well, I recognize this place. This is ancient Egypt because Wonder Girl's mom was an archaeologist. And she's like, but they didn't say nothing about an alien invasion. And then the shadowy figure comes out and says, hey guys, I've been here for a while now. It's me, Red Robin. You guys need to fight him off and you got to do so in the next 13 minutes, okay? And then Red Robin phases out of time again. And so Superboy and Wonder Girl beat up the army. And then we get the whole layout page. And it turns out that the whole of the Titans are now just kind of bouncing around space. And they don't know how long they're going to be in a specific location. They don't know like where they're going to end up, but they just keep on showing up in places and they have to just make it work. So we cut to a spaceship in the future and Kid Flash and Solstice show up and Kid Flash is like, Solstice, stay here. I recognize this ship. I mean, no, I don't. Bye. And he runs off and we see he makes his way down and runs into his past self. And he recounts how he's been getting these memories, these flashes of what his life was like before he came to our present. And he realizes this is it. This is the moment everything changes. So he goes down and he talks to himself. And it turns out that he is part of like a rebellion force against some invading army or something that is making its way to the outer colonies. And he's like, if the reinforcements arrive, it'll kill us all. I'm going to kill them first. And Kid Flash is like, you can't. If you do, you're going to lose everything, including her. And Kid Flash is like, Bart is like, what do you mean her? And Kid Flash is like, She-Ra. Who's She-Ra? Who knows? Regardless, he basically begs them, saying, don't do this, don't kill them. You got to be better than them. And Bart just says, I am better than them. That's why I'm killing them. I'm going to liberate a galaxy. So Raven appears in old medieval times and fights against Etrigan because Etrigan's like, I sense your Trigon spawn. I will kill you. Haha. And Raven's like, pshaw. And then Wonder Girl gets involved because she's around as well. And Wonder Girl then spells it out for Raven of exactly what needs to happen here. And we see that they are bouncing around time, as I said, sometimes individually, sometimes as groups, sometimes for a day, sometimes for years. But they have to do whatever they need to do there, and then suddenly they disappear. Red Robin is able to figure out when the bounces are going to happen, and his goal is to slow it down and make it so they stop bouncing. And so he keeps on, like, trying to tag his fellow teammates to stop them from bouncing as well. But he believes that the key to all of it is Raven, because Raven existed in another dimension outside of time. She is uniquely able to manipulate the time stream. So she needs to use her demonic powers to basically claim the souls of each of the Teen Titans so that she always has a connection and can feel them throughout time and space. So Wonder Girl is saying to do all of that, and then Red Robin will be able to fix it. And as he's going through the time stream again, Raven says, at last, Father, they offer up their souls willingly. According to plan, will you please let me come home now? So, yeah, there's an annual. We got an annual coming up that's going to apparently explain this, and then we're just going to be done with it. Like, it's just a one-issue, one-and-done thing. I have never been so pissed off at a time travel story. I love time travel stories. Like, they're my favorite because there's so much possibility that you can do with them, especially in something as much as the DC universe. But they have already set up this idea in not only this book, but in the Forever Evil that it spun off from, that the whole point of it was Kid Flash was pulled back into the future. They set that up. They've been doing that for 20 issues now. But first we have to do this annual where they're bouncing around the time stream. Like, why? Why is that necessary? That's so stupidly complicated for no reason. The fact that we needed an entire issue before we even got to the annual just to explain why this is a thing, which they barely even do, it's complicated for no reason. Much like every other one of Scott Lobdell's books. I'm going to give this like a 2.5. And it's not because I think that any particular part of it is like that abysmally awful. It's because this book is the definition of unnecessary. There is no reason that you should ever need to find, read, or take this book at all. And the annual's coming out like next week as of this issue coming out. I doubt that one will be required either. It just feels like this is padding because we were always going to wait until issue 25 to start the trial of the Kid Flash in the future. And I know that because it's the name of the goddamn trade. 2.5. Do not recommend. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this October 23rd, 2013. But we're not done yet. I mean, with this episode, yeah, we are. I just got to do one little thing here at the end. But we're not done yet with this month because next week, as I said at the beginning, is a week 5, and there is a whole lot going on. So next week is October 30th. Means it's spooky episode. What's so spooky about it? We've got another goddamn Superman event happening. I'm already terrified, but I will go through here and just list off these things here. So we've got Nightwing Annual, which I don't think there's anything special about. Action Comics Annual, which is the beginning of Krypton Returns. Green Lantern Annual, which is the ending of Lights Out. Aquaman Annual, which I think is another story featuring the Others. Teen Titans Annual, which if you listen to my Teen Titans rant about, 5 minutes ago, you know why that's not a good time. And Swamp Thing Annual, which I, again, don't think anything special there in terms of event-wise, but Swamp Thing's been pretty good so far, so kind of looking forward to that. But we also have 2 new number 1s going on. We have the spin-off series, Forever Evil Argus, coming out, because I guess they just couldn't meet the deadline of this week. And there's a book that I was actually unsure about whether or not I was going to cover on the show, because it's kind of iffy as to whether or not it is a new 52 book, but I decided, hey, I've got the trade, may as well. That is Damian, Son of Batman, number 1. That is a book that is written by Andy Kubert, art by Andy Kubert, and it is basically a story of the future where Batman 666 happens, and where that flash forward in Batman Incorporated happens, where everything ends up being awful because Damian ends up being Batman. So, little mini-series. I don't know how long it's going to take to get through that one, but we are going to go ahead and take a look at that next week. Additionally, on top of all of that, I have 1 or 2 backup stories that I'm going to go ahead and throw in on the end. Honestly, ever since the backup stories in Justice League and All-Star Western stopped, my plate's been pretty empty. So I'm not sure if backup stories are really going to be a thing for much longer on Fifth Weeks, but I will give it to you as long as I have them. Anyway, that's all that's coming up next week. Be sure to check it out. In terms of this week, if you have any thoughts on any of the comics I talked about, feel free to hit me up. I genuinely will read every single comment. I have nothing better to do with my time, but you can go ahead and hit us up on either Reddit, on Discord, or on Patreon if you're willing to shell out an extra $1 or $2. It'd be highly appreciated. All the links to that are in the description, however it is you're watching or listening to this. But thank you very much for watching and listening. Be sure to tune in next week. Go ahead and give thumbs, stars, or repost us. I don't know. Do whatever you got to do. Highly appreciate it. But thank you very much. Be sure to tune in. I will see you next time. And always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.